Okay, should be good.
Okay, it's a little after 4. I'll call the meeting to order. I'll turn it over to Tracy. Our first project is Finger Lakes Railroad request.
Yep. So just to give everyone a sense of how this came about, Veronica gave me a call, I don't know, maybe a week or two ago, and mentioned that they are working on a project in Auburn. I will share the map here real quick. And they're doing some reconstruction of some railway, and they're going to be applying for, or they'd like to apply for some grant funding, and they need a essentially a pass-through agency for that application. So she's going to present to you today, but we don't have to make any decisions today. If there's any questions we need to follow up on, we'll put it on the agenda for the April 20th meeting. So this is just informational at this moment. So Veronica, would you like to take it away?
Sure. So this is for a Northern Border Regional Commission grant. It's a funding
Sorry, Veronica, I just muted you by accident.
Yes.
There you go. Sorry.
That's okay. So did you hear anything, or do you want me to start over? Oh, okay. The funding opportunity came up, which is the Northern Border Regional Commission. And it's basically, we're looking to piggyback off of a project that's been slated by New York State DOT for the crossing there at 5 and 20. So what we're looking to do is kind of extend behind there the Auburn Industrial Track, basically replace that rail. And I guess he has it here as crossing route 5 and 20, Orchard Street, Baker Avenue, and Columbus Street. And it'll basically be a single-ended line that terminates just west, which is Carolina, Eastern Valley, Caraval fertilizer plant. We're looking to use for our matching the state-funded project crossing. So this was an opportunity that came up, and we thought, you know, not only could we piggyback off of that and upgrade that portion, but it would also give us kind of that upgraded area as well for any type of future development there at the Bombardier plant, if that comes up as well. So anyways, yes, like Tracy said, we need the, we can't apply for it. It has to go through either the IDA or another political entity. And so we contacted Tracy, and you didn't have one currently going through MBRC. And so we're presenting that to you today to see if you would be willing to submit that application on it.
Well, as I understand it, the IDA's role here would be relatively hands-off. The Finger Lakes Railways working with an engineer that would prepare the application materials and then implement the project. The IDA would act as a pass-through for the funding. So there would be probably a little bit of administration, but it doesn't seem that there would be a huge role for the IDA to play here.
Anthony would kind of handle all the documentation and information submission.
So are there any initial questions for Veronica that she might be able to answer, she can get answers to before the next meeting?
My questions would be, are there any risks to the IDA, whether they be financial or otherwise, in doing this?
I'm not aware of any. Like I said, the total project cost is a little over $1 million. So we're making a request for 538, and then we're using as a match the 538 for the New York State DOT grant that was awarded for the reconstruction of 5 and 20. So my understanding is that if you want to call that Auburn's contribution, a match, but technically that goes through the DOT through FGL committee. So my understanding is there is no group cost to, or I believe he even put that in the letter that we prepared. I believe he put that in there.
Well, I understand that, right, the letter says that you pretty much take on all responsibility, but what if there's an issue of non-performance or something incorrect in the that doesn't satisfy the grant? Are there any liabilities to the IDA for that?
I can follow up with you on that.
Okay. My second question would be, as far as for Tracy and her staff to do the administrative, is there any type of remuneration by anybody for that portion of the project that they will have to monitor and handle?
My understanding is that Urban and Anthony will handle all that, and the funds will go through the grant for that. There shouldn't be really anything on their part that's needed, but the say is that this would also benefit Cuba County and the IDA as well, because for quite some time we're trying to get somebody into that facility there. So I don't, the plan isn't to have any of that at your expense, but I think this would benefit all of us. So, if it's a small expense or some time, I guess that's up to you if that's acceptable, or if you're looking for us to take all of that on.
Okay.
How much disruption of traffic on 5 and 20 would there be?
That would be a question for Carl when that comes up. Usually they create detouring and other things that, gives it minimal disruption. But that is from what I understand, that's a pretty good project. That's definitely a question for Carl, Henry, and I can follow up with you on that too.
I know when they did Division Street, it was quite a disruption of traffic flow. Any other questions? Trace?
So we'll follow up on some of those questions and bring this back to the meeting on the 20th. And then if you have any questions in between now and then that pop into your mind, please do pass them along so we can make sure that we have everything addressed at that meeting. The application is due, I believe, in May. So the timeline is getting pretty short on getting that in. So yeah, if you think of anything between now and then, let me know. And I will pass it along to that team to bring to the meeting.
Thank you.
On now. I see Carl.
Oh, is that Carl?
Yeah, it is Carl that just called in. Carl, can you answer a question real quick about disruption of traffic flow with regards to 5 and 20?
I'm not sure what the question was.
The question was how much disruption there would be to traffic in the upgrade to the line crossing Route 5 and 20. How long would traffic be disrupted?
Hard to say. A lot of it depends on kind of how we're able to do things. Now, I imagine that because of it being such a main artery through town, a full closure is probably highly unlikely, though is kind of in a way the fastest, to get things in and done. So likely, we'll have to do things kind of staging it and do one lane at a time, best we can. I would maybe venture of like 2 weeks to get it all said and done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Well, thank you to both of you. We'll pass on any additional questions that come up between now and the April 20th meeting, and we'll look to get this taken care of.
Okay.
Uh,
Thank you all for your time.
One other thing though, kind of the crossing project is something that will eventually happen, whether this application goes through or we get approved or anything like that. So if that's kind of a question mark to things on your end, it is something that will be happening in the near future, one way or another.
Well, thank you again. If you have any questions, just let us know. We'll be happy to answer.
Great.
Follow up on the other regarding the question regarding the liability of performance and things like that. I'll get that information from Dennis.
Great.
Well, have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, you too. Thanks, Carl.
You're welcome.
I have a question, Paul Lattimore. Would this be the last meeting we do this way?
We're gonna talk about that towards the end of the meeting. We'll decide what you want to do for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next two things on the agenda are regarding the sewer line. The first is the construction oversight. I did get, I think Taylor sent that out on Tuesday. Taylor sent out on Tuesday the proposals that came back in the summary. But I did get clarification, or I did get an update from CNS companies. And so that's down here. So their original proposal came back with part-time coverage of the construction oversight. So I asked them about what the full-time coverage would look like, and they provided an updated quote. That updated quote was for phase 1, 16,800, phase 2, 52,200, for a total of 69,000. If they were to do full-time construction oversight. That is still quite a good deal below the other two quotes that came back. The Probst Group did provide a revised quote with some savings based in phase 1, based on overlapping with the work that they're doing for CMI. So that took about $7,000 off the phase 1, but it's still very expensive for phase 2 because they would be having someone in a hotel for a long time. So the Probst Group total was $112,635, and the Ramble quote, which I believe they used to be OBG, Brian Gear, their quote came in at $89,579. So the low quote here would be CNS companies at $69,000 for full-time coverage.
So Tracy, at any point did CNS believe or feel comfortable that they can do this on a full-time on a part-time basis?
I think it's something that probably some other projects do, is to do part-time construction oversight, but the RFP went out as full-time. So I think it's some projects choose one way, some projects choose the other. So I think that was just kind of something that they do for other projects, and they submitted based on that. And yeah.
So Herb, have you ever seen that done where it's just part-time? Because you and maybe Ray, you've got experience with projects like this.
I hate to answer because I'm a little biased against CNS, so.
Herb, you with us there, Herb?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, there's Ben. Yeah.
This is Ben. So my experience is you can do part-time as long as you have somebody that has a little bit of understanding and can call CNS whenever you think you want them, or else they just schedule, random times. But it's better if you actually have somebody around that can say, hey, they're putting in, this pipe today. Can you come and inspect? That's my experience. I've worked with CNS for over 22 years. Two of these guys that are on this, I've worked with for those 22 years. I don't have any problem whatsoever with CNS. I know the county has had issues with them, but most of the time their issues is because they're asking them to do architectural work instead of engineering work. CNS is an engineering firm that has some architects. This is the stuff that they do the best. And I would support their proposal 150%. And if we have somebody that can, check once in a while, we can probably have some savings by not doing it actually full time, but calling them in when the times are appropriate.
Yeah, I think
How
that
long?
makes sense.
It looks like it's going to be 12 to 16 weeks for the project. Is that true, Trace?
That's what the estimate is from that Probst came up with. Yeah.
Hey, Tracy, I'm sorry, just for a second. Can you remove whatever you've got on the screen? Because when you do that, the audio is real bad. Thank you. And was it Ben that supported CNS? I'm sorry, I didn't know who was speaking.
Yeah, that was Ben.
Yes, that was me.
Okay, thank you.
Is Herb
Is
on?
Herb on the line?
Yeah.
I have Herb.
Doesn't have audio, Tracy.
He is audio.
And I agree with Ben. I like the part-time. I mean, we can save 30,000.
Did you get an answer about Herb? Is he on the line?
He just popped off. He had video but no audio, so he just popped off. He must be coming back in.
Okay.
I mean, I guess that's so in the pre-meetings between Probst, the construction company, Highlander, and the construction oversight company, I'm sure there can be some conversations about the most key times for that inspection to happen. If we did want to do something closer to part-time, well, I'm sure they could work out that. I'm going to be completely honest that I don't feel comfortable being that person. I don't feel comfortable being the expert to say when CNS should come inspect and when they shouldn't. So I would rely on Probst and Highlander to make those calls. But I'm not a constructor, so I want to make sure that we're using the right people to make that call.
Well, Rick will do it. Rick said he put his hand up. He'll do it.
No, it may be helpful, and if you stick to the lower part-time proposal, that since this line is going to be turned over to the authority, and they do have people that are qualified, and Janine's on the line, and now Herb is back, maybe to fill up the gap between part-time and when they're not there, that representatives of the authority could be on site. Just to report to our.
Oh, that's a good point, Rick. Carl could do a drive-by every day.
Of course, because he's going to be the one maintaining this line when this is all done. So
Right.
There's something to be said about our own people that are going to be taking pictures and just knowing, and then, but
Yeah. And you
Does
need
that
someone.
sound like a reasonable thing to have your staff doing with their other workloads?
Tracy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Oh, okay. We had said before that we would be going out periodically, but I don't know about daily oversight. For certain, we don't want to have that liability, but you know, an inspector, I think an engineered inspector can sign off. We wouldn't be able to sign off, but we certainly want to be around and see what's going on. And, you know, my guys have already, you know, we've already talked about it and the board's talked about it. We certainly would be involved. We want to see what's going in the ground too. So
we'll make sure to,
and you know, if I can, pardon?
I was gonna say, we'll make sure to have you in the loop on the pre-construction meeting.
Yeah, I was just going to say that because if we could be at least me at the construction meetings, then well, you know, we'll know what the timeline is and where the, you know, the major parts of the construction would be done. So, you know, it's definitely the connections, but the guys have no problem stopping over there periodically. We're close by and we're very interested in seeing what's going in the ground.
Is Herb back on?
It looks like Herb's
Yes.
back. Yep.
Opinion, Herb?
What, Ray?
Do you have an opinion about the CNS group and part-time?
I just got on. I'm not up to speed on what you're doing, Ray. I just got on.
Okay. Tracy, can you give them a quick overview?
Yep. So we got 3 quotes that came in. The original quote from CNS was for part-time. The RFP had gone out for full-time, so I got a revised quote from them. Either way, they are the low bid, and so the main discussion at this point is kind of part-time versus full-time construction oversight. The thought was that as long as we can identify when the most important times are for them to be there and inspecting, as identified as part of the pre-construction meeting and an understanding between all the different groups involved, as well as, you know, occasional drop-bys by the Sewer and Water Authority. Part-time might be a good way to save a few dollars in this process. And I think that's the summary.
The bids were for both parts of the project, right?
Yes.
Do some of you have a problem with the part-time inspection?
I don't have a problem, Herb. I don't know enough. I've never done any of these projects. And my question to you was, I mean, have you seen it done and does it work? And would you have any concerns?
If the part-time people are reliable and they are there at the times that they need to oversee something, I think the part-time would be all right. If they're just not going to be there, they're not any good, but.
Yeah, and Herb, we thought that, the water authority, you know, Carl could keep an eye on things also.
Carl seemed to be agreeable to doing that, and the engineer for the water authority came up with a price of $20,000, but he had a problem with one of the things that they were asking for, and I can't remember what it was, but I don't see how we can get from 20,000 to 90,000 to do this overseeing.
So they had actually revised after talking to Rick about it. I did revise the RFP to adjust where their concern was. They still did not provide a proposal. But I don't know if they gave you a quote for just phase 1 or phase 1 and phase 2.
So
the phase
what
1.
I did is take all the pages out. You can go
CNS
through
company
them.
for part-time was 40,000 for phase 1 and 2 combined. Full-time was 69,000.
So can I ask for those that are in the know, I mean, does the final responsibility rest with, for instance, if we went with CNS, with those engineers signing off on any work that's done?
No number.
Look for a number to call.
John, I think even though they're part-time, they have to sign off on the project, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can I,
it would be their
this is
responsibility.
Ben. This is
My
Ben.
only,
Yes, Ben.
Sorry, let's go with Ben.
go ahead,
Yeah.
Ben.
You know, like I said, I've got had 22 years experience with these guys. Done them both ways, part-time and full-time. And, well, the Mark Chambers, the first project I worked with them, he was full-time and we were kind of designing the project as we were building it. And then Bruce Letts has been our lead engineer ever since I've been at the market. But I think part-time would be fine, especially if Carl from Water and Sewer stopped by once in a while. And, you know, if we wanted somebody from the IDA, I'd volunteer to, you know, stop over and check and, you know, kind of work with CNS and Tracy to try to, you know, make things go very smoothly and save a little bit of money.
If Ben can do that, I'm sure Carl can fill in where Ben thinks he should. And if that's the case, I would feel comfortable with the part-time too.
Yeah, my only concern, the reason I ask is if we get, at this point, we might have 3 or 4 people stopping in and on various days at various times. And that, to me, lends itself to, if something goes wrong, then it starts a lot of finger pointing of who thought was supposed to be doing what. So that's my only, my concern is not with the company. My concern is this part-time cover us if something should go sideways on this. And I just feel more comfortable knowing that I only have one person or company to go to for resolution of any issues versus 2 or 3 other people.
John, I'd like to address that. I think the contract is with the IDA, and our person at the IDA is Tracy. So Tracy's ultimately the one that makes the calls, and people would have to coordinate everything through Tracy. That's why I said I'd be happy to work with Tracy. I would never take the responsibility myself. I mean, I would talk to them and do stuff, but the ultimate responsibility, as you're pointing out, lies with the IDA, and our representative is Tracy. And if anybody's working on this, they have to coordinate everything with Tracy. It's not like 3 different people taking the reins and doing whatever they want to do.
Actually, it's the part-time, it's going to be the company we hire that ultimately we would be held responsible by us.
Yeah, but we pay the bill.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm saying, Ben.
I think Ray is right. Even though they call themselves part-time, they're responsible for approving that the project was done right.
Exactly.
Correct. That's correct.
And we don't pay them until it is.
We don't pay them until they certify that they're
Exactly.
satisfied that it was done correctly.
That's absolutely right. We don't want another one of these deals where there's humps and bumps in the middle of it.
Who certified that project?
Yeah. Are we ready to go for a vote, or we have more questions?
I'd make a motion to approve CNS engineers, and with the caveat that Tracy has the ability to work with them, whether it ends up being full-time or an hourly rate to a not to exceed a number.
Okay.
It's the part-time.
Yeah, that's another way of saying part-time, but yeah.
Okay. You state your name and motion, Ben.
Ben Vitale, I'm making the motion.
Thank you. Do we have a
Andy
second?
seconded.
Andy
Ray, I'll
seconded.
second it.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion? Tracy, you want to do a roll call vote, please?
John Latinishyn,
Yes.
Andy Reinflesch,
Yes.
Herb Marshall,
Yes.
Paul Lattimore,
Yes.
Ben Vitale.
Yes.
Looks like we've got Gina
Yes.
and Ray Lockwood.
Yes. All
Oh, we're in favor.
all voted in favor, so it's carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now we go to the fun part, paying for it.
So in the packet was a draft memo from Doug Selby regarding the financing background and his recommendations on how the costs of any financing could be split among the parcels. Basically came up with a cost allocation formula that assigned essentially an assessment of usage to the new sewer and broke that out by kind of how long the loan would be. The IDA would have a part to play for the vacant parcels. So the IDA seems would be taking on a portion of this debt service as long as those parcels are vacant. And each of those vacant parcels were assigned a usage. It was a per acre usage amount for the sewer, kind of assuming that it was 5,000 gallons per day per acre. So based on that, each of the vacant parcels was assigned a base assessment and then potential sewer flow assessment, and it was broken down that way. And then it included CMI and Grober's current active flow. And then just kind of broke that down by the length of the loan and assumed financing structure. So basically, a good portion of the amount would be covered by the active users, but the vacant parcels would have some, CCIDA as the owner of the vacant parcels would have a part to play in the annual financing. And then Janine is here as well. She's been working with her financial folks to look for some potential financing options. So I don't know if you have anything to add at this point, Janine, on that. I know you guys are still working on it.
Yeah, we are working on it. Right now, we have not found a program that would fit for us to come in, partially into this program. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm driving. Okay, but we do have another meeting with a new program through rural development. It is economic development-based program. We're going to be having a meeting with them next week with their specialists, and then Mark, our financial advisor, myself, and possibly one board member. But we're working on it. That looks like it might be a good avenue. That is a grant and loan based, but it's also based on what you've already done, how you've already financed it. So we're looking at all the angles because it is one project, but it's only financing a portion of it. So they understand what we're trying to do. We just need to hone in on it because it's a fairly new program. So we're very hopeful that we can come up with something. But that's as far as we got so far. That's only one besides regular, financing, regular bonding. Or at midweek next week, and I can circle back with Tracy too. And Tracy, I don't know if you'd be available. You're more than welcome to sit in on that too and be able to chime in.
Yeah, just send me an invite. I'd like to listen.
Yeah, because it might be something that you'll use in the future too. So I don't know much about this program at all, and of course, what we do is not usually economic development based. I mean, is helpful. I mean, the infrastructure is definitely a piece of it, but we'll see how that goes. We're very hopeful. Mark is optimistic that we can get this done, but there's no guarantee.
Before we
for this
get,
program.
this is Herb. Before we get to the financing, I have 3 questions. I did not know that we were going to combine the first phase and the second phase in the financing. That's what we're doing, right, Tracy?
So that's the assumption at this point, based on the last conversation we had about financing, was that we'd want to look at both phases.
So we're looking at both of them together, right?
This is based on both of them, yes.
And how did we get to $1,140,000?
So it took into account the total cost, and then with the estimated construction oversight costs, which are actually lower. So this number will actually have to go down, but at the time it was the best guess we had. And what Doug did was he took the commitments from the ESD grant that we already have. The IDA is required to do a 10% equity injection, which cannot be financed. And then the EDA, the potential EDA grant. And then he took what was left over and put it into the financing model.
But how did we, just simply, how did we get from the bid price, which was 900 and some thousand, right?
The engineering costs were added in.
The engineering costs.
And then I believe
the
that Doug
engineering
did put
costs
in.
have already been paid, have they not?
Yeah, that was accounted for when he took that, anything that was already paid out as well from financing. And then so the engineering costs were put in, and then I believe in the memo, Doug did mention that they added some service fees for the Water and Sewer Authority to the project as well.
I see that. Does this number, Tracy, include all of the engineering costs or just those that have not been paid yet?
It includes everything.
It includes all the engineering costs for the project.
Correct.
Oh, okay. And then just how did we get from there to the 418,000? My last recollection, we were looking at, I believe it was 20% of financing on the first phase and 70% on the second phase. Is that not correct?
No, so we have a 20% grant on the first phase.
And second phase.
Second phase plus an additional 50%. We're applying for the additional 50% grant on the second phase. So that reduces the amount of financing on the second phase.
So you have taken, you're taking 20% off of everything and 50% off, an additional 50% off of the second phase. Is that right?
Yep. Plus for both phases, 10% for the IDA equity that's required by the ESD grant.
Oh, okay. And I can't do this math in my head, but that's how you ended up with the $418,000 to finance.
Yeah, and that'll go down a little bit since we're saving some money on this construction oversight cost.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why this is a draft. This is a draft for everybody to look at and have these conversations. Absolutely.
Okay, I looked at all of Doug's drafts and I would think we would want some input from the milk plant because they're paying the largest share, but I would think we would go with the 20-year program, and then as we sold parcels, they would be phased into paying their share at the time that they was sold, if that was greater than the original allotment was.
Yes. Yeah, so I would say generally the annual debt service is lower on a longer term grant. Or a longer term financing, you are gonna end up paying more in interest over the time. So I think that's probably why there was some consideration given to timeframes, is to consider the extra interest costs involved in that.
But
yeah,
but ask our John, the interest cost at less than 2% is not going to be a major factor, and this would keep their yearly payment down.
And if inflation kicks up, you'll be paying back with cheaper dollars.
Correct. So,
may I speak, Ben?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I think it would be advantageous to ask the milk plant how many year they would like, what kind of the length of loan, because they're playing a pretty good portion. But as for the IDA, if you're looking at a 10-year, we got quite a bit of commitment each year. The 20-year, it reduces our commitment, which is very helpful. But I also noticed that the Huga Marketing had mentioned that eventually they would like to take over the whole property. And if they were to do that, then the sooner they did it, the less input we would have from the IDA.
We did a seeker negative declaration on the Wasco water main replacement project.
Hey, Rick. Rick.
Back, what was it?
He's talking to us.
He's talking to us?
I don't think he is.
2017, December.
No, he's not.
No, I don't think he's talking to us.
He's double billing.
But
there you go.
But anyhow, I would support a 20-year unless the milk plant wants to go for 10.
I would recommend myself 20, but I would leave it up to the milk plant if they wanted to do it at a faster pace.
Right.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what the funding agencies have for their terms, because a lot of times they have certain terms depending on the grants and the loans too. So we'll know more about that this week.
So
if that's the way we go with financing.
So if I can ask, this is John, with regards to that, how will this be set up that, let's say the milk plant in year 7 decides to move? Does somebody pick up? Who picks up what they're responsible for if we do a 20-year? There's another 13 years. Does that fall back to the IDA, or does the milk plant have to pay before they leave? How do we structure that?
Whoever buys the property would take on the debt load.
Okay, but what if nobody buys the property? And certainly, what if nobody? Remember, we're basing this on 1.5 million gallons per day. And what if somebody that buys the property doesn't need a sewer, or certainly not to that output? Who picks up the debt? I guess what I'm saying is, unless we have something in place, I would tend more towards the shorter term.
But I wouldn't think we would readjust the rate if the usage went down.
I think John's question is a legal question that we need to ask somebody, whether if we start with a 20-year thing, is the milk plant obligated to that? But John, how much money have they got into the milk plant when they do this next phase?
No, I'm not, Herb. I'm not. We can choose anybody. I just used the milk plant because they were there. We can choose anybody. I'm just saying, because yes, it's easier for the IDA if we go out 20 years on a yearly basis. Our debt service isn't that large. But on the other hand, if you take it out 20 years as people come on and go off, if we're responsible to be paying for the empty properties, we could pay a chunk of cash.
Yeah, but we would be better off paying the lower rate for the 20 years in hope that we sell some of that property. So we would end up money ahead.
I would say that so in the case that it's a milk plant, that they would have a responsibility until somebody else bought it. I don't think it would just default back to the IDA. I think what would end up impacting the IDA would be a reallocation of the usage amount and the flow amount. So I would think that,
don't know
I
if
don't
you
know if
wanna-
there's a way for
I
us to
don't know
work
if-
that into the contract.
Okay, so can I step in here? This is Janine. So if you have a certain amount of debt though, then you're gonna have to reconfigure the whole thing because you wouldn't be able to just base it on usage because that, whatever that annual payment is would have to be paid. So, you know,
Yeah,
you have to
annual-
think very closely.
That annual
that would-
payment has to stay with that piece of property because we can't readjust it
Yep.
every year usage
Nope.
change.
Right.
So we'd probably just set it up front that this is, you know, this
And that's-
parcel is set at this flow rate and this is what you're paying.
That stays with the property.
So then, you know, should they move,
Like
should someone move,
flat-
that
Well, it's just like if the bank forecloses on a piece of property, right? Then they assume the property taxes.
but I
No,
would
they
think
just,
that,
they just put 22 million into it.
Yeah, I don't think that's really a concern. You can always sell the tanks off for scrap and recover the money.
Yeah.
I mean, in the case that company XYZ moves in next year and then moves out 10 years later, XYZ would still have some responsibility for that parcel until it's sold. I wouldn't think that would be brought back to the IDA.
Exactly.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
whoever, but it's just like anything else you do in a district, it's the property owner. So whoever's, you know, if they move out and it's in foreclosure, it's still in their name for 5 years, that property is still, we would put it up against their taxes, you know, we would re-levy, and it would be collected by the county and then that would go on that parcel, which is difficult when, you know, somebody else goes to buy it and there's an extreme amount of debt there, but that's in the future, but we just have to be careful about how we set this up. That's why with our sewer district, we came up with a flat rate per parcel because we know we have to collect, you know, $300,000 a year. And then people merge properties and they split properties and the numbers are changing all the time. And people are buying and selling all the time. So we know what goes with each parcel. So, and then the commercial properties we look at for water flow, but we don't handle the water there. So this is a little bit different with the commercial flow to the sewer, but we have to be really careful about the output and the debt. So.
Simply, John has a point, but how I would look at the point is if the milk plant has invested whatever it is, $35-40 million, and we're looking at their portion of this debt service at $300,000, the relationship between a $300,000 debt service and a $30 million investment is so great that that would not be something that I would worry about.
So I think that's why Doug put together this draft. There's some scenarios here that we need to look closer to. You know, and I think this was the first cut at looking at all the parcels themselves, right? Because we don't know what the future is going to bring for the IDA, and you know, this is the first I've heard earlier today that you know CMI might be interested in the rest of the properties. That would solve a lot, right? So you know, it just depends on how it goes.
Now, John, in reality, and Rick should be answering this, not me. If we turn the debt service over to the Water and Sewer Authority, the debt service is on the real estate and the properties, but it would never go back to the IDA. The IDA, once they turn that over, they have separated themselves from the financial problem with this.
Right.
Rick, is that not correct? Rick's not there, so I'll have to be the lawyer.
No, he's there.
That's correct, Herb.
Thank you, Rick. So John, your concern would not be a concern of the IDA. It would be a concern of the Water and Sewer Authority, and the part that's not paid would have to be paid by the other users of the sewer system.
Well, yeah, that's correct, Herb. But remember, if I'm not wrong, until we sell those properties, those parcels are our responsibility.
Yes.
But that also gives a little incentive for Tracy and her group to go out and sell the rest of the parcels.
Yes, it does.
Okay, I'm good with that then. But you're right, Herb.
John?
I think we'll be okay.
To simplify this, I would move that we tentatively accept the 20-year repayment schedule, but we run it past the milk plant and make sure it's satisfactory with them.
Okay, state your name.
Yes, I make a motion to do that.
And state your name.
Herb Marshall, I'm sorry.
Yep, for the record. Thank you. Is there a second? State your name.
Andy, second.
Thank you. Discussion.
So
John,
this will be predicated just after we have the conversation next week about the funding source too, to make sure that they actually have that time frame of a loan, but we'll bring more information to the next meeting.
Right, and we gotta see what the milk plant says.
Yep.
John, in your answer to your question, Tracy and I have had some discussions. They would like to buy more land, but I've agreed with Tracy, unless they're going to do something with the land within a reasonable amount of time, then we've not been really receptive to just selling and leaving the land sitting there vacant. Isn't that true, Tracy?
Yeah, to this point, that's been the case.
Ray and Tracy are correct on that.
Yeah, I agree.
I've had some discussions with Kevin Ellis about it and Kelly O'Hara. I've told them anytime they want to bring a check in, I'd bring it before the board. Okay, is there any other and by the way, John, they've already got maybe 175 million invested out there. I don't really think they're going to take their marbles to go home.
John is a good banker. He's looking at the financial part of it.
Yeah.
That's why we have John.
I'm married to a banker, and we've had some quite good discussions about that.
Yes.
I want to run out and buy everything, and she's, oh no, not yet. Any other discussion on Herb's motion? Trace will do a roll call vote so that we have the names on the record.
Mr. Latnishin?
Yes.
Mr. Reinflesh?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Lattimore?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Spino?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes. Thank you. All voting in favor. And next discussion, Trace.
So I think that covers
Meeting.
the meeting. So the last couple of items is we mentioned this briefly before we started. We did get Global Common is coming back around. They're ready to button everything up. So we scheduled a public hearing for them on April 19th at 4 p.m. At the same place as at Doug's farm. So that'll be the day before our regular meeting. And then just if our folks ready to go back to in person for the April 20th meeting, or hybrid was not a great solution, but we can continue to try that. But we just need to get a sense if I need to find another room for the next meeting.
If the distance thing is reduced from down to 3 feet, our meeting room would be satisfactory if there were no extra people there.
Yeah, the sewer and water, or the soil and water room would be great, actually.
Yes, that would be fine.
So we can, sound is still going to always be an issue as long as we're like spread out the way we have been, because we do need to still stream, even if we're in person. So sound is going to be problematic, but we'll make it work.
I would think you and Ray could work on having that room out there available, and that's certainly large enough.
Yeah.
I've had conversation with Doug. He's a little squeamish about having large numbers. I've told him we probably would have no more than 10. Is that true, Trace?
Yep. So there's 7 of you, me and Taylor, that's 9. Rick is 10, and then anybody else we can dial in.
Okay.
So I think, Ray, it would be approximately 10, yes.
Yeah. I don't know why he's following the county guidelines, and I don't know why the county hasn't opened up their buildings more at this point.
We are a county entity.
What's that?
We are a county entity. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And I told him that all the members half the members are members of the water and sewer board anyway.
They're in that room anyway, so.
Right. It's a lot more.
What?
John?
Go ahead, Paul.
What time is that meeting?
Which one?
The first one on Monday, right?
4
Yep,
o'clock.
Yep, 4 p.m.
And where is it, Tracy? I didn't follow you.
Doug Young's, Rose Haven.
Bruce Haven Farm.
Right next to Dumont.
Oh, yes. I know where Doug's place is, yes.
He's got pretty large conference room there.
And on the 20th?
We're trying to determine that now.
We'll, for now, assume that Ray will be able to convince Doug to let us into the Soil and Water Conference Room.
You're better looking than I am. You probably could do it better than I can.
We'll confirm when we send out the meeting packets on Tuesday.
Yeah, he was okay with it. He just said for you to follow up with him for what kind of needs you need.
Okay.
So the time is 4 o'clock?
Yes, 4 o'clock on the 20th.
Now, Trace, on the public hearing, is that going to be so people can call in and dial in?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have a Zoom link available so people can dial in or call in,
and they will also be able to walk in also.
Yeah, we'll probably have limited capacity in that room. It's a good sized room, but it can only fit so many people. But it will be open and available.
Okay, because I know Stan Hoskins last time wanted to comment, and he sent a written letter in. He was disappointed he couldn't come in person.
Yeah, we got a couple letters last time, so I'll bring the letters back out.
No, that's fine. I'm just asking in case somebody asks me.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Trace and I will work on the soil and water meeting site. And any other things, Trace?
That's it for now.
I move we adjourn.
There's a second. Favor?
I second.
All in favor? Is there any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep.